Music came first, right? Yeah.
I think that tends to be the way that we work. We develop the tracks first, and sometimes, and there'll be like loose sketches.
I think one of us listened to Yeezus, Kanye.
That's right.
And then we were like, oh, this shit was like doom, doom, doom. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where that vibe came from.
The track starts out with radio broadcasts from the Rwandan genocide. So that was one ethnic group in Rwanda that was controlling the media narrative, influencing the population to enact genocide. A lot of the record and a lot of the conversations we have kind of play with this concept of the media and the way propaganda works, and then the way that you influence and drive society.
Let me paint the picture. Walked outside in my black skin. The clouds are whiter than a napkin. Thinking about going right back in. But all I'm hearing now is action. Power play, power moves, power tripping for powerful white men wearing white power suits, and it all seems so casual. Banking you trust, that dealerships no more bus pass. Religion that you pray to, government that's the same too.
Where that particular like setup came from was a lot of the conversations that Jason and I had. Like a lot of our conversations were about like our different backgrounds and experiences and how we came to be in the place that we are right now. As a black man, I was sharing my perspective on the society that I see every time I walk outside, specifically white men wearing white power suits. And then I talk about different places have these professions, and they all are mimicking the same society structure where everyone's not really paying attention to it.
Hand me that brush. Walked outside in my white skin. The clouds are blacker than a cauldron. Thinking about going right back in. But all I'm hearing now is action. Power play, power moves, power tripping for powerful black men wearing black ghetto suits, and it all seems so casual. TV dictates the narrative, makes it oh so imperative. Bullets, bodies, and criminals, fuck, it's also subliminal. I had never rapped on a track before. I actually still have a lot of fucking problems saying that I rap. I usually say I say words in rhythm. But it really did kind of spring from actually wanting to take the conversations that we were having personally and put them in that song. There's a similarity between the way that we operate and engage in the world, but there's very different consequences to those lenses that we view the world from.
This was like two folks that are having a conversation, maybe not necessarily understanding the other person's lens, more of a confrontational conversation.
Because I think we were having a lot of confrontational conversations at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, Stephen and I are what, like almost 20 years apart in age, and have vastly different life experiences.
Right, a black man in America, white man in America, and like all the things that comes with, and like being able to have a conversation would lead to a whole lot of confrontations, but we're also in community, and if you want to have a different world, like you have to understand and accept it and be willing to grow and learn. And then we were like, let's try to put that on a track.
The problem, my friend, gun in his hands, and it looked just like you. I understand the powers and plans of the men look like you. Historical context of conquest, benefit like you. The birth of a nation was broadcast, benefit like you. Fast forward to the future, the police will come shoot you. Everything ran by computers, but they still hanging their nooses. It's a shame, it's a nuisance. Speak like Martin Luther King Jr., the Malcolm X, you are crucial. It ain't the same how they view us.
It was like, that's where the agitation starts, if you feel it through the story. And it goes, the problem, my friend, gun in his hands, and it looked just like you. And I want to distinguish between the look versus the men who are like you. Sometimes there is no distinguishing between the two. You may look like that person, have a totally different mindset than that person. That shows up in action, right? But the look is important, because then we're talking about race and how historically it has looked.
When I hear those lyrics, it's hard for me to not be like, oh, to like chafe. And I think that is a common problem that happens in this conversation, especially when you're on my side of the coin. You
should not be reacting personally, but it can be very difficult to take that.
There's this notion that it's an attack on my character or my identity.
Right.
Because there's shame and guilt and all these things when we're talking about the history of white people in this country. And so when it is coming from someone that doesn't share that same background, and whiteness has really not been part of a lot of white people's conversations. And so when it starts to happen, it's just like, it's an unfamiliar place.
There's a consequence to being an angry nigga. Just an angry nigga. Just an angry nigga, though.
That's the score from Birth of a Nation.
Yep. The conversation turned from like me and him talking to someone is like channeling through me to say there's a consequence for being an angry nigga. There is tons of consequences. Ooh, this is a good example we didn't talk about. Remember when we went to Fred Meyer's?
The other night,
and the alarm went off.
Yeah.
Like that shit inside, I was just like, oh, I hate when that happens, because usually either they're gonna be like, hey, you come here, what did you steal? Or there's an understanding of awareness of like so many people is gonna look around and be like, oh, we knew that black person was stealing. You know what I'm saying? And on the flip side, like it beat because whatever you bought, I don't know.
They never scanned the thing.
And so we walked out, and I'm sure we had two different feelings of walking out.
I didn't give
right
a fuck.
next to James. So I knew like he probably didn't care, and it beat because of whatever you had in your bag. But nobody in the fucking place that seen that and looked would have thought it was you, right? So in my body, I'm like, well, now these motherfuckers think I'm stealing. Being in this body, like there's a consequence for me showing up anywhere. And that consequence can very well be life-threatening or dangerous, or just scare everybody else to make it uncomfortable for me to even be there, right?
Who am I? 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 Animals and killers, 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 yeah, animals and killers, animals and killers, animals and killers, animals and killers.
So this is when the song gets dark. Like, who am I? Who am I? Because like, whoever I am, like what has it been told that who I am? What do I actually feel? What is my experience? And then it is the call and response, because we're asking the same questions but have two completely different answers. What are we actually doing to each other? What are we doing to the planet? What are we doing as human beings, as a collective? It's divide, kill, and conquer. Literally, we are just animals with this idea that we have reached a higher level, but we're really just killing everything else off.
All of this track you just have to slightly change the way that you're looking at it, and it takes on an entirely different meaning. Just like the phrase animals and killers. Like, there's the media perspective that people who look like Stefan are animals and killers, and that's what's been communicated to me. From Stefan's perspective, people who look like me not only have treated people that look like him as animals and killers, but we've actually been the animals and killers in that relationship, right? But then you take it globally and you look at like, we're just a bunch of fucking animals running around killing each other.
Fuck that shit, don't trust that shit. Look good on your white ass skin. Niggas like me gotta hide my sin. Take that away when I fit right in. Can't fit right in. Media paint me like I'm dangerous. Mediocrity aimless, aimless. Narrative make me question what is.
There was something that was supposed to happen, and I think that got shifted, and we just put the Hitler piece there. And so it kind of became a response to whatever the fuck Hitler said. I don't know what the hell he was saying, but it was probably some bullshit, right? And so my next lines is, fuck that shit, don't trust that shit. It was just reinforcing like back to the original conversation of like why I can't show up and be who I am and who I want to be, based off of like this supremacy culture that has defined me as a threat when that has been a threat the whole time.
Yeah, when I said I'll stop criminality, I'll stop criminality. And if I have to kill you, I will kill you, personally.
The third sample is from Duterte, who's the authoritarian president in the Philippines. He was in the middle of an interview And his whole platform was about cracking down on crime and specifically drug use. And he basically labeled anyone that was a drug user as a criminal. And basically his philosophy was, if I can't reform you, I'm just gonna kill you. And that falls along the same lines as the way that Nazism propaganda worked, the way that the Rwandan genocide worked,
the way that our media here in the States works.
They got a plan to design and define what's on the mind. Got screens to divide, to instill hate inside. Cause if we're standing as one, they can't run, they can't hide. They can't run, they can't hide. But I'm telling you, brother, that I'm sick of all these fuckers playing as one above the other. Got us fearing each other. The common man ain't the clan, ain't a thug selling drugs. Just a woman or a man trying to rise up above the walls that divide and instill hate inside. Cause if we're standing as one, they can't run, they can't hide. They can't run, they can't hide. They can't run, they can't hide.
The last sample is actually audio from the Charlottesville rally.
Yeah.
So this was like an independent journalist, and I'm gonna use that term very, very loosely. This person was walking around with a cell phone, filming themselves, saying, someone call 911. Someone call 911. They have a fucking phone in their hand. It was more important for them to capture themselves in that experience than it was to actually help the fucking people who had just been hit by a car.
It's like our whole thing is killing the silence. Like, and so what is the silences that we're talking about? Things like that. Like, it's more important to show up instead of be the human being that is needed to like make actual change. Killing the silence literally came out of this understanding. There's a silence of toxic masculinity. There's a silence of like so many things that are happening in our society, if it's political to like personal, family-wise, understanding our different backgrounds. And it was like, how do we kill this thing? And what it is bringing it to light.
I think there's so little tolerance in society today for any sort of uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
People don't want to be uncomfortable.
Facts.